Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for connecting and joining with us today. We've been talking over the last several weeks on strategies that'll help you put your plan into action. So throughout the year, we're going to continue this series so it can help empower you to continue putting your plan into action, giving you those tools that you need to be equipped to make sure that you can accomplish your goal. So as I always mention, we're here at ABC Educational Services to support you along the way. My name is Andrea C. Scott, and I am the founder and CEO of ABC Educational Services. So we look forward to connecting with you, hearing from you. We're so glad that you joined us today. Listen, now, if you've missed some other segments in the series, please feel free to look at any of our replays on the many platforms that we have. We have YouTube. You can connect and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can look at the replays here on Facebook. We have LinkedIn, Pinterest, for those of you who like Pinterest, and Instagram. So I wanted to go ahead just to make sure we're mindful of the time today. I'm so excited about this segment today, which is called Overcoming Barriers. This will be the first part of a 3-part series where we're talking about overcoming barriers while you're putting your plan into action. Now, we know that as we're working towards accomplishing our goals, barriers, obstacles can happen. So I wanted to just spend some time, and as I said, we'll take some time throughout the year to continue to talk about overcoming barriers. It's so important that you know that in the midst of obstacles that come your way is not a sign to quit or to give up. We're going to keep going until we reach and accomplish our goal. So I wanted to talk a little bit with you today about overcoming barriers. So, what is a barrier? What is a barrier? A barrier is an obstacle that prevents you from moving or having access to what you are striving for. The whole purpose of a barrier is to try to make you think it's so difficult that you'll give up or make it look so impossible that you will decide to forfeit your plan. So we know that that's not even an option. We're not going to forfeit our plan, but I wanted just to give you just a concrete definition of what a barrier is so we can move forward to bust those barriers. Thank you for those who are coming on, watching. Hello, good afternoon. I hope something is said that's beneficial to you today. So as I said before, those barriers are there. They're meant to come to make you think that you can't reach what you're striving for, or to actually get you to stop working on that goal. So we want to make sure that we have those strategies in place to know that when barriers come, we'll know exactly what we need to do to bust that barrier. Know that barriers are meant to be broken and you can overcome your barrier. So I want you to know that. Oh, hello, Mark. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in with us today as we talk about overcoming barriers. So what I wanted to talk to you about is forward movement. Those barriers try to come, as I said, to keep you from moving forward. And we need to know that. Just as we've talked about before, this is not something new. We talked a little bit about it last year and in our gathering process. As I said, if you missed that segment, please feel free to look at our replay. So know that as you move forward We're not going to let barriers get in our way. We're going to keep moving, looking for those strategies that we need so we can bust every barrier that tries to come in our way. So just like the law of attraction, we talked a little bit about that law of attraction, that as you move, everything that you need will come to you to complete your goal. So we want to make sure that we don't become stagnant. We don't even become afraid. We won't be afraid when obstacles come. We'll say, hey, I have a strategy and this will not overcome me. This is not going to stop me from accomplishing my goal. So as I talked about a little bit before, in our gathering process, we talked a little bit about barriers. And part of the gathering process, and I'm just going to briefly talk about it, I'm not going to go in a lot of detail. As I said, you can always go to our replay and listen and check it out. But as we had talked about barriers, we're talking about those things that may possibly get in your way, those obstacles that you may have. And I know we had mentioned, which we're going to talk about in a minute, is the time factor. That time factor, looking at that time factor to see, oh my gosh, what was happening if I don't have enough time. That's actually a barrier obstacle that I want us to talk to in detail today, just so we can have those preventative measures and see what we can do to bust that barrier in our life and accomplish those goals and be more time conscious when we are putting our plan into action. Also, like people, finances, whatever those barriers that you listed when we were working on the gathering process, consider those that you've already written down. Now, if you weren't with us when we went through the gathering process, it's okay. You can consider those that you may have now or have already experienced as you are working towards your plan. Just as you plan to accomplish your goal, if you already know that there may be some barriers in place, it is very wise to plan and prepare for that. So what do I mean? So that means that as you are working towards your goal, and as we had talked about last time when we were mapping out our planner, when you're scheduling and determining, anticipating that time, you anticipate the time that you know you may possibly need to help resolve and overcome that barrier. For example, I know I used myself the last segment as I was talking about working on a book, and determining one of my action steps is deciding whether I'm going to self-publish or connect with a publishing company. So I have decided to self-publish, but in the midst of that, we know that there are finances involved in publishing. So as I foresee, knowing that I will need finances that will be available to me, I need to prepare myself, and for knowing that I may need additional finances to help me in that self-publication process. So what does that mean? So that means that I don't wait until that step comes to do it, that I plan for it. So then when it comes, I've already put the necessary strategies in place to ensure that what I need will already be available for me. So, and it may not be that. I just wanted to use myself as an example. Some of you who may be considering to go back to school, and you may have children. You know, you might need a babysitter. Knowing that if that's one of your action steps that you know that you need and you list it as part of our gathering process, know that. Allow that time for research for a good babysitter, the cost. And even now in the midst, we have another precautionary measure within COVID. Knowing that there are precautionary measures that you may need to allow for as you are looking for someone to watch your child. So those are just some examples that I wanted to throw out there for you to know that it's okay. If you already know that there may be a barrier, that's a perfect opportunity to plan for it in addition to your action step. So just know that we're not going to mix it all together. we're going to put in our, as you're mapping your planner out, put in there barrier buster. So you'll know that that's not your action step, but this is the time I'm using to bust this barrier so I can continue with my action step and move closer to my goal. So as I talked about before, I wanted to talk a little bit about this time factor. This is so important as you are going toward accomplishing your goal. So important. So remember, as we had talked about before, how do we determine what we use our time for? We determine it based on your personal vision and mission statement. Remember, the time that you use is centered around what your personal mission and vision statement is. If you have not had a chance to create that and you need additional help, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to support you with that. It's so important that you have that personal vision and mission statement with you, that you have it in front of your eyes so you'll know what your center, what your focus is. So we know, remember we talked about being effective and not being busy. And that's one of the important things about overcoming this barrier when you're accomplishing your goal, making sure that, wow, why am I running out of time? These are just considerations, because when it comes to that time component, a lot of the time component that happens, we can overcome that if we take time to self-reflect and prioritize. Remember, we're going to plan, prioritize, and produce. So we want to make sure that we're making time for those things that are relevant and important and connect with our personal vision and mission statement. And I want to be very clear and emphasize that, because it's so important to know that what you're doing, what you're spending your time with, needs to be connected to the purpose that you believe your life, why you are here, what brings meaning to your life. If you see you are focusing on those things that are not centered around your personal vision and mission statement, that is a key for you to say, okay, this is time for me. I may need to readjust. Now know that in the midst of working on your plan, there may be times where you might need to reset and readjust. Be okay with that. Remember, this is not a marathon. We want to make sure that when we get to our plan, we are successful. We want to make sure that when we get there, it'll be effective and that we won't have to backtrack when we believe that we've accomplished our goal. So it's so important that we make sure that it's centered around our personal vision and mission statement. I just wanted to emphasize that a little bit. So when you've identified, wow, why am I running out of time? It seems that the plan that I have, the action steps, the anticipated time, remember we talked about last time, we talked about that anticipated time, to think about the anticipated time for each action step. If you see that you are running out of time based on the anticipated time that you set, be okay with that. Know that, okay, I need to take action now. What steps do I need to do to overcome this? So here's some things that I just wanted to share with you to consider if time indeed is one of the barriers that you're seeing that you're having a hard time overcoming. Remember, barriers are meant to be broken. It's just a matter of processing, matter of reflecting, working and pulling on that support system that you have. If you're running out of ideas on how you can better use your time, pull on that support system. Pull on that support system that you have and that you've created to help you accomplish your goal. So, in saying that, want to make sure that if you have, because there's sometimes some of our action steps, we determine our goal and our timeline and our deadline. if you are doing that and there's not a deadline that's already there or already in place, set a deadline. Work as if you have a deadline. Okay? Because sometimes when we work and we don't have a deadline, what happens? Procrastination sets in, and we want to avoid that pitfall. We want to avoid the pitfall of procrastination. Okay? So if you do not have a timeline in addition to your action step, because sometimes we need smaller benchmarks to help us stay focused, right? When you're doing your action step and you've already anticipated the time that you want to use, say you anticipated a week that you needed for that action step, and you see that, wow, the week is over and I still have not accomplished this. So that means you have to go back, self-reflect, and look at, okay, maybe I need to break my time focus structure into smaller bits, so that to help your focus, to know like, wow, what did I do with the time that I had? So that's a signal. That's a sign to let you know I need to reframe something that I've already put in place. I need to reframe my time and possibly look at the roles that you have. Reflect and look at your roles, because remember last time we talked about those barriers, and sometimes in our barriers, although that role may be important, we need to make sure that we are prioritizing your goal, prioritizing your action plan. So you may temporarily have to adjust that role so you can make sure that you're having time to complete your goal, time to complete that action step. Okay, so I wanted to share this with you before we started talking about some other strategies when you experience barriers and strategies to overcome it. I really wanted to spend some time first to make sure we dealt with this time factor. It's so important that we keep our focus, that we stay prioritized. And as I said before, if you need assistance with this, please feel free. Don't hesitate. Give me a call. Reach out to me, 720-427-8901. And I'll be more than happy to work alongside you, ensuring that you get everything you need. Okay? So, some of the questions I would like for you to consider as you are dealing with this time factor in order to overcome this barrier. Here are some questions just to kind of consider. Okay? Have I effectively prioritized my plan with the other roles in my life? Am I fully committed to the plan that I have put in place? Do I have the support systems I need to complete my action step? Am I on target? Those are the questions that you should ask yourself in reflection, so you'll know, how do I need to take action on this barrier? Because remember what I said, barriers are meant to be broken. And even when obstacles come does not mean that's a time to stop. So even when you see that, wow, I'm running out of time. Looks like I'm running out of time on what I've allotted for my action step. That is an indicator for you to know that, okay, how can I overcome this? So here's a recommendation that I have for you. Just look at the time that you have, use those questions, and if you would like, create your own questions for self-reflection to see, where is my time going? And if you notice that you're using more time in other areas and you have this wonderful plan, but you need more structure and you need to micro-create your time allotment, do so. And I wanted to just let you know, when it comes to time, I know a lot of times we say, and I know I've been guilty of it and I try to stop saying it, can time be made up? Or, I need to catch up. Is there such thing as catch up? Such a good question. And I want to encourage you. I know I'm not trying to be controversial, but know that when it comes to catch up, know that the time that you use, the time that's been lost, cannot be recaptured. So the time that we've lost in either delay, procrastination, we cannot get that time back. But here's the good news. Although our time cannot be recaptured, we can increase. We can increase in our dedication. We can increase in our motivation and increase in our focus. This will help us be more time conscious. And it may appear that you've caught up, but you've actually just used your time in places where it was most needed. And motivation is such a big factor as it relates to your use of time. So know that time cannot be recaptured. I want to say that again. We cannot make up for lost time. We can't go back and say, I'm going to take that hour back. That would be wonderful if we could do that. But in order to get to where we want to go, we increase in our motivation. We increase in our dedication to our plan. We increase in our commitment and our focus. And those are the key tools that'll help you get to where you need to be and catch up, per se, to where you believe you need to be. Now, remember, as you're working out your plan, we are not in competition with anyone else. Right? We're not competing with anyone else. We're not comparing our race. We're not comparing our plan to anyone else, but we're focusing on what we need to do to effectively put our action steps in place in order to see our goals come to pass. Okay? So just wanted to share that with you. I know time is a huge factor for a lot of us when it comes to trying to accomplish our goal. And if you have not experienced it, you will. It will come. So I wanted to make sure that I wanted to just give you some strategies on how you can bust that barrier of time so you can stay in sync with the goal and not feeling like you're in a constant cycle of reset and readjustment. So I wanted to just share that with you today. And before we go, I wanted to share some other tools because there's so many barriers that may come up as you are working towards accomplishing your goal. That's why I wanted this to be a 3-part series, because I know that there's things that we may experience as we begin, as we're in the middle, and then as we're close to accomplishing that goal. So I wanted to make sure you had the support that you needed to ensure your success in accomplishing that goal. So I wanted to share some strategies with you because I know that in the midst of everything, there are other barriers that come up besides time. And we want to make sure that we at least have those strategies in place. So when obstacles come, we just laugh at it and say, you know what? I already know what I'm going to do. I already know the strategies that I'm going to put in place for you. So here's what I wanted to talk to you about today. One of the very important things is when an obstacle comes, whatever it may be, to identify this indeed is an obstacle. This indeed is a barrier, and face it. Avoidance will not make your obstacle go away. Can I say that again? Avoidance does not make your obstacle go away. In fact, it actually inflates it. If you avoid it, it makes it larger than what it may need it to be. So we want to make sure that we identify it. We need to identify it and make sure that we're facing that. Now, this may be a challenge, especially in those obstacles that we may face that are unforeseen, that we didn't even anticipate. And know that. Don't be afraid to face it. You face it, confront it head on, and know that I'm prepared to take action. What do I need to do to take action? What are the strategies? What are the steps that I need to take to overcome? So we're not going to give up. Remember, as you are working on your barrier, when you're working on your obstacle, this is still forward movement. Okay, let me say that again. So we're not giving up. We're not stopping. As you are working on your barrier, this is forward movement. Okay, so we just apply that to the time that you've already allotted for wherever that obstacle shows up. And know that wherever it is, know that we are going to overcome that barrier and you're going to keep going forward. So you'll include this on your schedule. You'll include it as your barrier buster. That I just came up with that. Include it as your barrier buster in completing your action step. So you don't just stop doing your action step. This barrier buster, working on these strategies, that's part of your action step. Okay, so make sure, as I talked about before, that you go back to your personal vision and mission statement and your goal to make sure that, okay, what's my resolution? How do I move forward? This is so important. Once you identify it, prepare, consider those strategies, consider what your resolution is. Go back to that, your personal vision and mission statement and your goal. Consider, how is this going to impact the other action steps that you've planned? Okay, so for instance, and I'm going to use myself as an example, just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So for example, years ago, when I was in undergrad, when I was in undergraduate school, right before that last year, my fifth year education major, fifth year, I became pregnant. Now, being pregnant was not the barrier. I was so excited. It was my last year of school. I'm ready. Registration. Things came about. Went to my department head, ready to do my student teaching. And here comes the obstacle. My department head advisor said, Andrea, I'm sorry, but we do not allow students who are pregnant to student teach. So to my surprise, I was like, okay, so what's next? What do I need to do next? So the first thing I had to acknowledge and realize, like, wow, this is an obstacle. This is a barrier. What are some strategies that I have in place? So I had to consider what resources do I have in place, because I'm like, this is my last year. I'm determined. I'm going to accomplish this goal put in place. So for myself, I had to, before I could even start my student teaching or even move forward, I had to go to the president. I had to go to the president of the college that I was at. It was at HBCU, a liberal arts school, but had to go to the president and let him know, like, here was what was told to me, that I'm pregnant. I'm a student. They said I couldn't student teach, that knowing that you all don't allow those who are pregnant to student teach. So went to the president, submitted my case to them, let them know, I'm, really wanting to do this, accomplish this. So short story, I was the first, I was the first student at the college that was actually able to student teach pregnant. They made allowances for me to be able to go and student teach because I faced it, confronted the situation. Not only was I able to student teach, but I was able to leave an example and a model for those that will become behind me. So it's very important to know that even sometimes when we are facing obstacles, barriers are overcoming, that when we overcome our barrier, it may help someone else who's behind us as we accomplish that goal. So that opened the door for other students to come behind me and to be able to be successful and still be able to teach and still be able to finish their education and accomplish their goal. But I had to see, like, how would this impact the other action steps that I planned to finish school? It would have greatly impacted it because I needed student teaching. That was the last step. That was what I needed to be able to get my teaching license and, be qualified to become a teacher. So that was, I just wanted to use that as an example because that would have gratefully, immensely impacted that goal, that plan. But I'm so grateful and thankful. I'm here to say, I'm a barrier buster, was able to, God's grace allowed changes to be made, not just for myself, but for those behind me, and that was one of the best semesters that I had, was actually awarded Student of the Year in the department, thank goodness. Was able to finish with a 4.0 grade point average. And I'm sharing that with you, not to boast of myself, but to boast on what happens when we choose to face and confront those obstacles that come in our way. That helps us, that draws something out of us, extracts the greatness and such a determination in us to know that, this is possible. Anything is possible. Gives us a higher level of boldness and confidence in who we are and the ability to know that even in the midst of this obstacle, I'm still going to accomplish my goal because I'm not going to be distracted by whatever obstacle that comes in my way. So I wanted to just share that with you just as an example, as when that comes, how that might impact, it impacted my action step, but just an example of, how something might impact your action step. But I kept moving as I was waiting because it took a couple of weeks. So in the midst of me waiting for the decision, there were other plans that I had in place. There were other things that I was doing. So when I got the decision, when I got that decision, I was ready to get started. So I started preparing my children, getting things that they needed. So when I began my student teaching, everything would be in place. So I highly recommend you, if you have not already, if you're working on one goal, that's great. Stay focused. But it's great to always have something else in place, maybe not even trying to accomplish it, but just putting those steps in place, gathering what you need for the next goal or the next plan that you have in place, and resting. Preparing for your self-care, resting, so when you know that obstacle is achieved, that you've overcome it, you're rested, you're refreshed, you're prepared. There's nothing that's going to stop you and keep you from accomplishing your goal. So I wanted to just share that with you, to let you know that it's not impossible. Plan for those readjustments. Know that when you are making those readjustments, and this is part of the resolution process, okay? This is part of our resolution process. When you plan to make readjustments, that doesn't mean you have to start from scratch. That's why it's so important, and we talked a little bit about that before, as you're mapping out your year, as you're scheduling your year, to have those points where you're doing that reflection, where you're doing that follow-up. So let that be part of your reflection, like, okay, before I move here, here's what I need to readjust. And I'm telling you, sometimes when that happens, a lot of times when that happens, things come, you see things differently that you may not have even seen before. Opportunities come up because you had that obstacle. That obstacle became an opportunity for you to experience something better, have another opportunity, have another connection, either in relationship, another door opening, whatever the case may be. When you use that obstacle as an opportunity, things will open up for you. Trust me when I say it's not a time to give up. Ask yourself the question, when this obstacle, whenever obstacle comes your way, what opportunity can come out of this obstacle? Because know that there's opportunities that are going to come as you work towards overcoming that obstacle. So if you're currently, I just wanted you to know, if you're currently experiencing any barriers as you're working to complete your goal, please feel free. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, to contact us. I wanted to be very diligent in the information and the resources that I'm giving you as it relates to overcoming barriers. I don't want to overwhelm you with information. That's why I wanted to divide it in 3 parts. The next segment that we're going to talk about as it relates to overcoming barriers is how to overcome burnout and exhaustion. So that'll kind of be at the midpoint. I'm so excited, looking forward to sharing it with you. I appreciate all of you that are watching, that came on with us today watching. Now know that if you are experiencing any discouragement, disappointment, you're not quite sure on the direction that you want to go as it relates to completing your action step or even completing your goal, you don't have to wait. Please feel free. Reach out to me now. You don't have to wait. Please feel free to reach out to us. We'll walk alongside you, help you brainstorm. We have free consultation. We talk through some things. Know that it's not impossible. We are part of your support system. So know that you don't have to wait until we have our segment. If you're experiencing exhaustion, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're not quite sure on the direction that you're wanting to take as it relates to accomplishing your goal, even mapping it out. If there's an obstacle that you're dealing with right now that you're not quite sure, even with the information that I gave you today on how to even use the strategies, how to put these strategies in place, where to begin, please feel free to reach out to us. Reach out to me. We're more than happy to support you. That's why we're here. So until next time, I'm so glad you joined us today. Remember, the world is anxiously awaiting to see that goal, to see that plan, that project come to fruition. It's not impossible. Your voice matters. You are important. The world is anxiously awaiting for you to step in, to step out, and see that plan be worked and come into action. You are on this earth for a reason. You matter. And until next time, know that we're here. Encourage you. Reach out to us anytime. If you believe that this information is beneficial, please share it with someone that you know so they can be empowered also and be equipped. I look forward to seeing you all. Well, not seeing you, but on Facebook Live, connecting with you as if you are here with me. I appreciate your support. Until next time, take care and put your plan into action in 2021. You will close the deal in 2021. Have a great day.